Today is the 7th of January, 2011. We're at the New York State Military Museum and Veterans Research Center in Saratoga Springs, New York. My name is Wayne Clark. Sir, for the record, would you please state your full name and your date and place of birth, please?
My full name is Adelbert Aden, Sahlberg. I was born in Saratoga Springs, New York, at 76 Clinton Street, and I was
What year were you born?
born on July 7th, 1924.
Okay. Did you attend school in Saratoga?
I attended number 3 school on Catherine Street, which now no longer exists.
All right. And you graduated?
Then I graduated from the Saratoga Springs High School, which now is another type of educational facility.
Now, what year did you graduate?
42.
Do you remember where you were and what your reaction was when you heard about the attack at Pearl Harbor?
Yes, I do. A gentleman by the name of Alvin Morris, M-O-R-R-I-S, and I were out with 2 young ladies that evening, and I was sleeping in late when my mother came in and tried to wake me and say the Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor. And I said, yeah, sure, but I'm tired. And no, she said, it's true, it's happened. And so I finally roused up and listened, and then I got out of bed, and I got in the car and I ran over to where Al Morris, who I had been with, of course, was just having breakfast. And I walked in on his family and said, you know, the war has been started, the Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, and I think he thought I had too many drinks too, but as it turned out, that it was true, and that's how we found out about Pearl Harbor.
Now, what was life like in Saratoga after the attack at Pearl Harbor? Did you notice a difference?
Not really. The Saratoga itself, of course, had Company L. I knew Jack Croak, who was your first sergeant down here, real well. And everybody then decided who was going to be going, how old are you, and all this type of thing was making the rounds as far as inquiries. But it was rather subdued. There was no mass running up and down the streets yelling and all this type of thing.
What about rationing? Did you and your family experience any of that?
Oh yes, rationing. Before the rationing went into effect, of course most people had a pretty good indication that this was what was going to happen. And along with quite a few other people that I won't name, had some drums, 55-gallon drums filled with gasoline to help tide them over. So other than that, everything went very well, and all of the regulations were obeyed, but it just stretched out, running out, shall we say, a little longer than otherwise expected.
Now, once you graduated from high school, you went on to college?
When I graduated from high school, yeah, I graduated in the spring of 1943, and I left for Cornell in August of 43, and I was in Cornell for a year.
What were you studying in Cornell?
General course. I had a general course at that point in time. I had no particular aims in life to be a doctor or pick a number. So it was a case then of near the end of the school year, I was a part of ROTC, and when we got to that end of the year, as I say, I had to make a choice because I was being called to duty on March 15th, and that's about the time I was going to take my finals. And so I did not take my finals.
Now, you were drafted?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I wanted to get in some education.
Yeah.
When you get your education, you can have a chance for officers. Without that, they just smile and look at you,
Okay.
which in my case was exactly what happened. They said, if you were graduating now, you would probably go right into the officer's training, but no way.
Okay. All right, so you got drafted. What happened next? Where did you go?
Oh, I went down here to, was it Camp Upton, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And some of this is noted in the Remembrances portion of the notes that you have or will have.
Okay.
My first introduction at the reform there was to mop up a wooden runway into a building, which I decided the best thing to do was to throw a bucket of soapy water up there and mop it down, which I did, just as the second lieutenant stood up, opened the door and stood out, and I hit him with a bucket of soapy water. It did not go well for the next few days.
All right, you ended up leaving Camp Upton.
And went down to Miami Beach. And there I took my basic training and I was assigned to the Air Force.
Okay. Did you know you were going into the Air Force?
No.
Okay, they just decided that's where they needed you.
The only reason I think they did that because I had a pilot's license when I was 16.
Oh, did you?
I was flying out of Lou Lavery's flight operations on Round Lake.
What kind of airplane did you fly?
Arancas, and they had a Piper too,
Uh-huh.
and it was just light aircraft. But I already was qualified to fly light aircraft, and I thought for sure I would get the Air Force.
Do you think that's why they put you in the Air Force?
I think that's why they put me in, because it was on the record that I did have a pilot's license already.
Mm-hmm. All right. What was basic training like?
Basic training, took place down there in Miami. They took us out on the golf course. There used to be a golf course down there. And by the time we got there, there was no grass left, and it was just sand.
Mm-hmm.
And about the time you had a few hundred guys marching back and forth, it was just big clouds of dirt and sand come up.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was, of course, into the summer. We got through in July, and very, very warm. So it was not very pleasant, and I was awfully glad when that part of the tour duty was over with. And we all waited for what was going to happen next, and my orders came through was to go up to Chinook Field, Illinois, with the 9th Air Force. So I did, and that's just about outside of Chicago, as you may know. So my work up there involved to be heavy equipment. And
now, did you get like on-the-job training or?
yeah. The first thing they put me into was an auto car. It's a big truck, and I assumed he thought I had some smarts as far as the big trucks were concerned. I'd never been in one in my life at that point. So we started out, and he said, "Okay, now stop." Well, you know, there's a big difference between air brakes and hydraulic. And of course, those are air brakes, and when you put your foot down, everything stops. With hydraulic, you slow down. Well, he left the seat next to me, and if it hadn't been for the windshield, he would have gone out over the nose of the truck. And he was not very happy with me because he had a big lump on his forehead. I said, "I didn't know this didn't work any different than a hydraulic brake. Nobody told me." So that was my introduction.
Now, were you disappointed at that point that you weren't being sent to flight school?
Very much. I had hoped and expected that I would have a chance to at least try for it. But they said that there were two things. They were looking for college graduates, number one, and I was not a college graduate yet. And number two, I had to have 20/20 or 20/30 vision to even qualify to be a navigator or a gunner or anything else. I couldn't go off the ground unless I had those and I didn't. I had, the 2030. So it wiped all of my hopes and fears of getting into the flying end of it were just gone.
Mm.
So then I pretty much accepted what came along, and so be it. That was it.
So they had you operating trucks and heavy equipment?
Yes, I learned to, I had my specialties were the heavy equipment, auto cars, Rios, Federals. If you know anything about trucking, you know those are brands of heavy equipment. With tractor trailers, so that 25 or 40 foot trailers, and how to back them up and how to load them and how to make sure your loads were right, and then you take them out and you learn to drive. So that was how that came about.
So how long were you at Chinook for?
Oh, let's see. I had just about finished up. I'm trying to think of how long there. That was about 2 months, 3 months. And I was expecting to graduate with my class when I got the word that my grandmother, with whom I lived with my mother, Dad, had just died. And could I come home? So I went in and the chaplain got a 7-day pass for me to come back here to Saratoga. So which I did, of course, and then when I got through with that, I returned, but by then the class I had been in and graduated with was gone. So I just sat around then for several more weeks doing nothing because nobody knew what to do with me. I wasn't assigned to anybody. Finally, I got the word I was being assigned to going down to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And that down there I was expected to be assigned to a squadron. It turned out, yes, that's the way it worked. I went down there and they were just forming up the 43rd Squadron. So they were just filling the ranks and what they needed, heavy equipment, crash crew. I had experience by then with crash crew. So that was what I was assigned to do there. And out of the motor pool was heavy equipment operator, crash crew, and that was how it was when we got the word that we're shipping out. And when that came, we went east. We thought we were all going to go to the Pacific because
So you went, the whole unit went together?
the whole squadron, yeah. The repair unit part of the squadron went together, and then the administrative portion of it went.
Were they part of the 9th Air Force?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. When we got there, we weren't part of anything when we started out.
I see.
We were replacements.
Okay.
Replacement. The 9th Air Force, up to that point, had been down in Africa, and it was heavy bombardment, B-24s. And as the African campaign wound down, then, and this is all hindsight now, it was the Supreme Commander's decision that getting ready to invade up here in France, they needed an Air Force to cover the invasion, very specifically. And so on the 9th was then brought up from Africa, converted from a heavy bombardment to an attack squadron. B-25s, 26s, and like that.
All right.
Bomber.
So before you left to go overseas, you did you come home for a leave at all?
No, I never got home.
All right. And where did you leave from?
New York City. New York City.
And did you go by
Queen
convoy?
Mary.
Oh, the Queen Mary.
Yeah. Do you remember the Queen Mary almost rolled over in September in a storm that made the papers. It hung up within 5 degrees of capsizing.
Mm-hmm.
Guess who was on the lucky
Oh, you
trip?
were on there, huh?
We didn't know it, except that everything fell apart.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you're looking at the side walls, and you're going to stay. We didn't know until later on how close we had come.
And whereabouts did you land?
Renwick, Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
We went in up there. That was the first signs of any war that physically we had seen. We had a couple of alerts going over there where they would sound off the alarms that subs were in the area, and that Queen Mary, which is what we were on, could go faster than any of the subs could, and they would start taking evasive action all over.
Mm-hmm.
We all would have to get on deck and put on our life preservers, and then we would stand in rows about 6 or 7 deep on deck until after the emergency was over.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised that nobody got hit, nobody got hurt, but that's the way it was. But at Greenwich, Scotland, when we got off, we caught the night train to head south. And on the night train headed south, we had the curtains up, and all of a sudden their ACAC was going off. And there was a raid by the German bombers were coming in, and they immediately, the train slowed right down,
Uh-huh.
and all the curtains were pulled, and nobody was allowed to peek out, which they all did, of course. But that was the first real sensing of that there was a war.
Mm-hmm. So you arrived safely at your destination.
Yeah, yeah. We arrived safely at Grove Air Force Base. When I say Grove / Wantage, W-A-N-T-A-G-E, Grove is on this side of the street, and if you walked on the other side of the street, you were walking in the village of Wantage, which is a little unique in that we don't do that over here.
Mm-hmm.
But over there, everything is compressed. So, in fact, I still have a very dear friend who lives over there in Grove today, and we communicate back and forth.
Mm-hmm. And what happened at that point in Grove?
Grove, I was with the repair squadron.
Mm-hmm.
So when an aircraft was down any place for whatever reason, and they couldn't fly it out, then I would take a crew, depending on what type of aircraft it was and what kind of damage was involved. And then I would go out. I would take either a 25-foot trailer with an auto car or a Federal or Rio, whatever the tractor happened to be,
Mm-hmm.
and or a 40-footer, depending on it again. And then it was the job of the people I took with me to disassemble the aircraft or pick up the parts or whatever it was. And my job was to see that it was loaded properly,
Mm-hmm.
and that to bring that back to the base.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Now this base was located in England.
this was in England, yeah. Yeah, if you know where Oxford, England is, roughly, then we were to the west of that about 15 miles.
Okay.
So leave it, everybody used to go into Oxford a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We got into a bit of a tussle with the Bobbies, unfortunately. Windsor is the estate of the King and Queen up in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was bringing back a P-38 that had one engine shot out, and it had landed up on a British base. And my crew had got the aircraft finally. We loaded it, and it was very wet, and with the extra weight on the trailer, it sank into the ground. So we had a heck of a time to get it out of there. And then they had a Jeep. The driver was supposed to find the best way back to our base. Well, it didn't work out that way. And we couldn't get through. When you get up close to the Windsor Castle, the road narrows down to maybe 20 feet wide at the most. And we were, the wings of a, even with the outboard sections taken off and the P-30L go out to around 24 feet, you couldn't get through. So we had to cut across the King's estate. And this caused almost a civil war, because by the time we had gotten 3/4 of the way across it, leaving tire tracks about 1.5 feet deep across those beautiful lawns and the hedges and all that, the bobbies were coming down on us. You know what I mean? The bobbies.
Mm-hmm.
They were all over us. They must have been 7 of them or more, and they were putting their bikes up against the front of the tractor and saying, you know, you can't go any further. We're 3/4 of the way across. And trying to explain to them, you know, if we turn around, we're going to make a bigger mess out of your King's estate than if we just get through the rest of it. Well, they couldn't understand that. So I finally just put it in gear, and I drove right over their bikes. And then we had a bit of an altercation. And finally we got through into the road on the other side. And you might guess there was a lot of hell to pay over that. But when they got through listening to all of the sides of what happened,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any choice. I was driving the tractor trailer, so it was my job to get it home.
Mm-hmm.
So that made an interesting episode over there where we did more damage to the Windsor Castle and the estate than the Germans ever did the whole war.
All right, and what happened next? I mean, did you stay there for obviously you moved around quite a bit.
Well, yes, I got to travel over most of England,
Mm-hmm.
just because of the nature of my work. And we used to go up to Coventry. That was one of the worst trips, because Coventry had been a munitions manufacturing town. The Germans had laid it waste in their bombings, and people were living in piles of rubble. But the Americans had using it for a coal, to heating,
Mm-hmm.
coal heating. And there was, I don't know how many tons, there were just huge piles of coal, and they were all in big barbed wire enclosures. And our job then, when something like that, you take a 6x6, that's a smaller truck, and drive in there, and they would load it up, and then we would drive back to our base down in Wantage. But they didn't have any fuel up there like coal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so what the kids would do, and I'm talking kids that were maybe 5 years old to 10, when you pulled out of the area, which was all barbed wire, high fences, and here's these tremendous piles of coal, and these people are standing there shivering, freezing to death, and they can't have it. Well, the kids figured out that what they would do was they would suddenly run out in front of your truck, and they would sit down and they'd go into prayer position and then look up at you and just sit there and watch you come right at them. At the last second, they would roll off to the side. Well, if you don't think that didn't break up a lot of hard-boiled guys, and I didn't go back there no more. We had to go back, but it was one of the worst things that I can experience, because you're looking at these little girls, little boys, and they're kneeling right there in front of you, and you're going to drive right over them. And they said, just if they don't get out of the way, run over them, we'll take care of it here. Well, that's a hell of an attitude, but that was our orders. You do not stop for anything. Run, go. So you got. But to my knowledge, nobody ever ran over any of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
They were good. They would be right there till that last split second, and they would just roll to the side. Little girls right along with boys.
Now, what was the purpose of that? So you'd slam on the brakes and
Yeah.
the coal would fall off the
You
truck?
got it. You understood exactly what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
That's what would happen. And then the older boys and girls would then run around and pick up all those pieces of coal and throw them into their little bags, and then they would go home and use that.
Mm. Hmm.
But I saw more than one guy go on sick call because he said, I won't go back there and do that. He says, I can't live with myself if I get one of those kids.
Yeah. Okay. And where did you go next?
Well, they asked for volunteers for special hazardous duty, and at 19, I was more courageous than smart, so I stepped forward, and they said, okay, you are leaving in the morning to go to a mine and booby trap neutralization school, and you will be responsible for all the airfields. Once we cross the channel, you will go in first and clear the area of the airfield where our squadron is to be of any enemy ordnance and booby traps.
Now this is prior to D-Day.
Prior to D-Day.
Hmm.
And you have somewhere here papers with the story of my going there. I don't know where.
I think it's.
In front of you or in front of me. I don't have it in front of me. Maybe you got it there.
Let's see.
Well, anyway, that's what we did. The story of my being there and taking the course.
Oh, June 1944.
Yeah, you were going to make a copy of that.
Yep.
That's my only copy, so I would need it back. Is that the one? Right?
No, I gave you a couple copies of.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I did give you copies.
Oh, maybe this is it here.
That's probably it there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You're right.
Okay.
You're right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was April 16th. It was the mine and booby trap. That's this one here.
Okay.
And so we were, the British were trying to teach us in 2 days how to neutralize Czechoslovakian, Austrian, German, British, American, Italian mines
Mm-hmm.
and booby traps. And I have here in my pocket right now my original notes that I made at that time. I've carried these for years. Everybody has a lucky coin they carry with them.
Uh-huh.
I have that. I've carried that for years in my pocket.
So that's your diary.
That's how to neutralize
Oh, okay.
and how to find booby traps before they find you.
Okay. All your notes, huh?
You know, there are a lot of pages of them, and
Okay.
that's just the.
Okay.
So that may be a specialist. And then later on, I was asked if I would, on the next one, do the waterproofing school, which I agreed to. And that was in June. I think you have something on
Mhm.
that too.
Now, what was that school like?
That was of interest.
That was to ready the vehicles
For
to.
wet landings.
Okay.
Fortunately, we didn't have to do it at an actual landing. We went through Omaha Beach, and but the school itself, they had these great big long trenches, and they were full of water, and there were 2 of them, and nobody had said to us what you're going to. They said you're going to go to school and learn how to waterproof the equipment. So if we have to make a wet landing, you can waterproof the equipment before we have to disembark.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fine. But when the cleaning up was rather horrendous. When we got there, they showed us what we had to do, and I had a Jeep to drive. So when you drive into the water, after you have waterproofed the Jeep to do so,
Mm-hmm.
and that was your graduation of that, from that vehicle. You would drive into this long trench, and then you would drive up the other side. Now you stand up in the Jeep, and you reach your hand way down, and you hold the wheel, and you have your one foot locking the pedal on the accelerator, and the water's up to here. And you're trying to hold your head up and look to the side and drive, and you steer the Jeep with one hand way down here. Very interesting experiment.
Uh-huh.
So then the next day, I drew a truck. Now that wasn't half bad. The water was up to my knees sitting up in the truck. But the idea being that if we have to disembark from the LSTs and they can't get into shore all the way, you're going to disembark and go for it, no matter what happens. If you take a few losses in the process, don't worry about it. We'll make them up later, unless you're one of the losses, of course. So anyway, when we got to doing the actual disembarking, our worst part of going across was that there was another ship in the middle. I stood on deck. I wouldn't go below because they were still talking about the Germans had air raids on the shipping at night, and they also had some submarines supposedly in the area. I don't know if it's true or not, but this is what we were told. And everybody's going below decks. Not me, I'm going to stay up on deck. If we're going to get hit or something, I don't want to have to worry about climbing the ladder to get back out with 20 guys hanging on my back trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
But we didn't lose anybody going. There was one truck. It was a 6x6 with all of the cargo laying on its side off to the right of the docks or floating docks, about 8 feet by 12, something like that. And they're just hooked together, but you've got to stay exactly in the center when you're driving. If you get over this way, you're going to do this, and you're putting hard rubber tires on hard, slippery, wet metal. And sliding is the easiest thing in the world. So, but that worked out. We didn't lose anybody going ashore. And but then we went in, and then some of these things that I have left here with you now tells the story of how that worked and where we were and all the rest of it. But we went through St. Lo after we disembarked.
Now, were you under fire at that point?
No, the front had moved up further.
Now, was this D-Day or D-Day plus 1 or 2 or?
D plus 30.
Oh, D plus 30. Okay.
Yeah. Our job was to take care of the fighters and the medium bombers as soon as we could establish an operational base, so that as that front line moved, you want to keep the fueling and the repairs or whatever of the 9th Air Force, because they were the sustaining Air Force, and keeping the front, shall we say, moving forward from the air. And that was our prime thing. And I was crash crew, did the crash crew, and then of course when we got ready to move to a new base, I was sent. I took 4 guys with me. I was sent to go in, and we had a map of where we were going to go and where the air base was, and what part of the air base we had been allotted for our squadron. My job then was to go in first and clear the area of any mines and booby traps, and which I did. I probably did. I never sat down and made an exact count, but it had to be close to 100 over the period of time that I had to neutralize at one form or another.
Now, what rank were you?
That was an embarrassing situation. They gave me corporal stripes when I got out. It was an unfortunate situation. It occurred in Paris, and I was on leave, and I was in a cafe, and I was enjoying a drink with myself, and I got jostled, and I spilled most of my drink, and I told the guy, watch where the HELL you were going, And he said, you don't like it? Keep out of my way. I couldn't get away with that, so I threw the rest of my drink in his face and I hit him as hard as I could. He went down, shook his head, and got back up. And I knew I was in big trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I got shot, and all I did was make him mad. So I grabbed the chair, and I let him have the chair. He ducked, the MP came through the door, and I hit the MP in the head with the chair. They do not appreciate that. There's no humor in these people. And I was close to being court-martialed, of course, for assaulting him. But the rest, I had a clean record, and I wasn't a troublemaker. I didn't have any previous time. Plus the fact that there was, they didn't have anybody else to go in first and clear the mines and booby traps.
Mm-hmm.
And so they finally got me turned loose, but I went back to being private for the rest of, most of the rest of the war. Then I got to be a PFC. But I was doing everything I did before, but it was a very unfortunate situation. There's nothing that I intended to have happen at all.
Yeah.
So what do I say? It's all history.
Okay.
So they gave me corporal when I got back out.
All right. So what, you were clearing mines and
Yeah.
driving truck and picking up aircraft?
Picking up aircraft, and we were, in fact, we were picking up aircraft when the bulge broke out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, we were moving from Milan up to Leon. And Leon is a, Couvron is the actual air base. Where at the foot of, but the hill is like a sore thumb sticking up out of the plain. On top of it was the village of Leon, L-A-O-N. And I was up there with the crew. We had a Jeep and a 6x6. And we were doing well, I was doing the cleaning up, and as I did so, then the rest of the guys were tidying things up after that. But I had to clear an area and be sure that was all neutralized. And then if there was a question about it, but it was left for me to move it.
Mm-hmm.
But I could neutralize most of these things. The worst thing that the Germans had for us anyway were the butterfly mines. Butterfly mines. That was always a gamble. You never, hardly ever could make a proper assessment. What they looked like, if you ever took if the big bomb opens up at the top,
Mm-hmm.
and when it opens, they drop it and open up, then all of these the outside leaves turn into shoots, and it rotates. Now, the butterfly bomb is about the size of a large can of tomato juice. And the chutes are full of these little bombs, bomblets, if you want to call them that. And then the device to detonate them is it looks like 60 clicks on a wheel. And when it opens up, the chute opens up, and all these little bomblets come flying out. When that happens, the cover opens up like this.
Mm-hmm.
So now it rotates and begins to spin as it comes down. Now, if it hits 60 clicks and hits the ground, it detonates. If it hits the ground at 59, it doesn't detonate. But if you go on it, it detonates. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So the only way you could get any intelligent feel for how these bombs worked was to lay down and look underneath them. Now, if the open shell was down like this, and you could look underneath it and see daylight, then you were probably not more than 55 clicks.
Mm-hmm.
And what you had to do was come up, take it, and go, that locked it. And you had to do it just as fast as you could for obvious reasoning. If it was close to 58, 9, 60, it went off. There wasn't much you could do except to get off, lay down behind it, and fire for a couple of rounds into it. either jamming the mechanism or it would detonate.
Uh-huh.
And they had left a lot of those around, a lot of those. They were the toughest ones that I ever had to deal with because there was no guarantees. There was no set pattern. Each one was different
Mm-hmm.
depending on the altitude it had been dropped. But the airfield was littered with them. And I felt bad because if I had been able to work faster and clear more, I would have saved 2 guys.
Hmm.
But they came in from the 8th Air Force and landed down below from where I was working. And in doing so, it wasn't until, well, the next day, where I was still working up there, and then I heard a tremendous explosion and screaming and yelling. And I ran down to where they were, and there was one guy lost his left leg from halfway up between his knee and his ankle, and his right leg, I don't think he saved that either, it was just shattered. And this other guy was over there, and he had some shrapnel in both arms. And they didn't know. They were 2 gunners on an 8th Air Force plane, and I, in talking to the lieutenant who's in charge of it, they had been instructed to land somewheres in France behind the lines because all the airfields now were safe back to behind the lines. Well, that wasn't true at all.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get back because their airfield was socked in. So they just landed, sleep and spend the night in the plane and get back in and fly back home in the morning. They got out, and here's one of these mines. Anyway, they're playing pitch and catch, back and forth.
They had no idea what it was.
They had no idea that it was a mine. They had no idea whatsoever. It was just something. The chunk of German, I don't know what they're catching. I don't know what it is. Of course, one of them dropped it. When it dropped it, it touched it off. Blew his leg off. It was both. I imagine he lost both legs.
Mm.
So there were some interesting times there. And then we got strafed real bad one time. They had a Focke-Wulf 190, and you could always tell that by the sound of the engine. You didn't even need to see the plane. You knew it was a Focke-Wulf 190. They had a radial engine that had a very, very unique sound to it.
Mm-hmm.
The first time they came over at night, we, of course, all got up and went to the edge of our shelters, and all they did was circle the airfield. In the meantime, across on the other side of the airfield, there was a medical unit that moved in over there, and I don't know who was doing their work for them, but anyway, it was another night or two later when we came back, and he had already circled a few times and done nothing, then all of a sudden he started strafing. And he was strafing the unit on the other side of the airfield. And this is incredible, absolutely incredible. There was 6-man tents, 2 rows. In the center between them, they had put up out of wood crates a wooden walkway, and walkways coming out to each tent.
Mm-hmm.
When he strafed, he went between those 2 tents. There was nothing but pieces of kindling all the way down between the tents. He never touched a tent, never touched a man.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely incredible. This is at night. This is at night. If I hadn't seen it, I'd be tempted to say, no, I don't think so. Really? Really happened? That's when he came around and almost got us, because we ran outside when we heard the strafing,
Mm-hmm.
and we were out almost to where we would normally go to get into another area shelter. And when he came back, he was strafing our side, and we were climbing up each other's faces trying to get back into our building because he was strafing across the hardtack right in front of us. So that was an interesting night. After that, we heard anything, we quickly got our clothes on instead of being a little lackadaisical
Mm-hmm.
about it.
When well, do you recall where you were when you heard about the death of President Roosevelt?
Not really.
Okay.
I can't really tell you the good answer on that.
Okay.
But,
Now, were you in Germany when the war ended?
yeah. yeah. It was, name slipped me.
Was it Aachen?
No, no. It'll come to me in a minute. It was a long, long name. It was near Kassel, Kassel.
Mm-hmm.
There was a small town just south and west of it. And that's where we ended up, in the small town. But Kassel would be the one you would look for to see on the map, just to,
Mm-hmm.
what we found was particularly of interest was that where we were staying was adjacent to a German airfield, and it was a German experimental airfield. We got a chance firsthand to examine glider bombs, new types of powered engines.
Mm-hmm.
They had just left them there when they retreated. And so we got the chance to see some of the new, the 262, which was a jet,
Mm-hmm.
and that was their equipment was so far ahead of us.
Do you recall the name of the town or the airfield?
It's Kaufenbagen,
Okay.
Kaufengen or Gan. If you look at a map that has Kassel on it,
Mm-hmm.
like here's Kassel, and coming towards me, you look at it right here, and it's a little long name like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Kaufenberg or something like that. I don't speak German. So that's where we ended the war right there. And then, of course, we were able to get out. Nobody forgives me for this. We got orders. The war is now over.
Mm-hmm.
We're waiting to go home. All of a sudden, P-47s are coming in and landing at this field. And they're landing them up row and a row and a row, brand new, all silver. They didn't have any markings on them yet, and got them all there. I personally, with my crew, destroyed 100 brand new P-47s that never had more than 20 hours on the tack. That was my job.
To destroy them.
To destroy them. What are you going to do with them? You're going to ship them back home. We already knew that there were jets coming along that made the P-47 obsolete. You're going to ship all of those aircraft. You're going to have to disassemble them.
Now, how did you destroy them?
I took a crew,
Yeah.
and with, there were about 6 of us all together. My job was to get down and I'd pull up in front of the airplane that we were going to, because they were just in rows, just very neat.
Mm-hmm.
The guys that would get in there, the instrument boys, would get in there and would take all the instruments out. Then I would hook onto the front of the aircraft, the nose, and they would take off the prop. And then I would raise it up, and they would bring up the wheels. Then I would set it back down. And then the boys with the axes would come along and shot holes in the wings. And after we had rows and rows and rows of destroyed, then the bulldozers came in.
Real. So you would keep the propellers and the instruments?
We took the propellers, well, it was pretty hard to drop a P-47's got a big prop.
Okay.
And if you try and lower that down, you can't drop it. It's going to sit like this. What they wanted to do is get them laid flat on the ground so that the guys could take the axis and chop holes in the wings. And then after that, then they would start bunching them all up together. And I don't know what they did with all the engines of it. I didn't have to worry about that. But it's been a standing joke with the guys who knew me. Hey, you're an ace many times over. Yeah, trouble is I destroyed all our P-47s and they weren't German. I found that out later. Gee Wilkins. Yeah, sure.
Now, how did the German people treat you when you were in Germany?
Very nice. We did not run into a lot of the younger troops. They were all either dead or prisoners. And the older people, well, my age category or whatever, was, they were, food, they were taking the place to, when we were in France and these other places, the people to stand outside at the American lines with buckets. And you take your, if you had something left over in your mess kit, you hit the slop bucket and put the, whatever slop you had in. There was mashed potatoes and gravy mixed up with beans and meat. You just slop it all in. Man, they loved it. They just gobbled it right down, you know. And here's the Germans doing exactly the same thing because they had nothing left.
Yeah.
They had nothing left on it. And I had an interesting thing there. Just there, outside of Castle, was a large PW, you know,
Yep.
prisoner of war. And it was, the Americans now were putting the German soldiers in there. The war was over.
Mm-hmm.
And they were coming in, you know, camarade. You know. They had barracks, they had food, they had a warm place to stay. They were living better than when they were fighting the war. And at all at American expense. They had Roosevelt. The gates down there had double width barbed wire gates on. They were open 24 hours a day with 2 MPs checking the guys in and out.
Mm-hmm.
The Germans, checking the Germans in and out. And they could come and go as they wanted, and they were supposed to go back in there at night. They were happy, they were getting fed, they had a warm place to stay.
Yeah.
There. Man, they never had us so good. And, well, my son has it now. But while I was there, these guys were coming in, and some of them were still carrying the guns. And they were just, you know, coming in and laying them back down. And I saw a nice German automatic 32 caliber, and blazoned into the muzzle of it was a big swastika.
Mm-hmm.
So I liked that, so I took that. I brought it home, and I've had it for all these years. And earlier this year, my oldest son now has it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was another instance where this guy was an older man. There was no question he was not young by any means, and he was in full uniform. And he had a German cross hanging here. And you know, the German cross is like one of the highest awards for valor, but he's an old man. And I saw him and I walked up to him and I ripped it off his uniform. He went bananas. He was coming right at me. And the guy, the German, he sang, grabbed him and held him back. And I don't know what he said. I'm sure he wasn't singing thank you. He was just wild. And they kept dragging him on down the line. I had the beautiful, my kids have that cross today. When I got looking at it, it was a cross from World War I. Now, the particular cross, there were 3 levels of the cross for heroes, for heroism, and so on. What I had done was destroyed his World War I. He fought in World War I, according to this, and he was, well, like a Congressional Medal of Honor, winning an honor. And I ripped it off his uniform and took it away from him. He didn't care anything after that. He was so proud of that. But that's the, and I could understand it. My kids have all these things now. And I'm turning these things over as I go along.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you encounter the Russians at all?
No. No, I was hoping to get to Berlin. I never did.
Mm-hmm.
I never got to Berlin. I got to a good many places in Germany, and of course I got up all over the northern part of France. In France, I got up and through Belgium, and went through Holland, Luxembourg, and Germany.
Mm-hmm. How long did you stay in Germany before you were sent back home?
Oh, probably 6 weeks, 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
6 weeks, 2 months. And it was all on points, of course, as you
Yeah.
would know. But we have that, that worked very well. I couldn't complain on that.
Now, how did you get back home?
When it became my turn, of course, I was young, and some of these guys, they took the older men first,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine. I had no problem with that. And I pulled guard duty because down at the foot of the hill where Castle is, so on an elevator. And so I was down in there guarding the 40 and 8s. You know what a 40 and 8 is?
Yep.
Boxcar. And this is how we were to travel in the 40 and 8s. So we were taken down there and loaded on, and then the train literally crawled across Germany and back into France and to Cherbourg.
Mm-hmm.
And there well, when we got ready to board ship, we were all lined up. Now, people probably shoot me for this, but we did not have a very good relationship with the Red Cross. And I still don't today.
What happened?
Well, you were a lowly enlisted man. If you were caught trying to smile or anything that to one of the Red Cross, you got disciplined. They were strictly offered, as we called it, officers' meat. You know, I can vouch to that personally because I have taken more than one lieutenant and his Red Cross girl into London or into Paris,
Mm-hmm.
and picked them up in the morning at motels and hotels. So, but for me to be able to have anything to do with them, no, I could be court-martialed. So, and then the other thing was that we were being told back home, everybody was donating to the Red Cross for coffee, for donuts and all that. Boom. They had tin cups at the beginning and end, rattling the tin cups for donations from the troops. Money.
For the coffee and donuts.
For coffee and donuts. They wouldn't refuse to, but they would suggest to you. When we got ready, I'll tell you how bad it was. I had no use for them over there, and I could tell you a lot more about it, but I don't think it's really necessary or appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
But when we were, I would take the officer and his Red Cross girl into Paris or wherever they were going, and then pick them up the next day. And so this was part of the game. But when we got off the ship. I'll go back one more time. When we got ready to board ship at Cherbourg, the officer stood out front of the column and said that we would not be allowed to take any foreign money back with us. And if you were caught, you could be delayed and you would be held for that. And you wouldn't get the ship out with your buddies going, you're going to stay here for a little longer because you disobeyed orders.
Mm-hmm.
Well, nobody wanted to do that, so they were pretty good about emptying their pockets. So they emptied their pockets out in front. Now, there were 3 Red Cross girls there. And then as they were just finishing emptying it, they said, all of the money that you are now donating is going to go to the Red Cross. And everything went quiet, and nobody moved again. And they said, there's more, we're going to donate. What are you going to do? Dead silence, nobody moved. All of a sudden, this one guy at the far end from where I was walked out through, took some matches and he lit it, and he put it into the pile of money that was out there. And one by one, everybody else came out, took the money, and put it into the fire. The girls were staying in there, the tears running down their face. And we burned our money before we would give it to the Red Cross.
Mm.
That's how we felt we were being treated by them. knowing some of the inside things that went on.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't make your papers here at all, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But, no, that's,
Okay.
I'll put my hand on the Bible and tell you that.
Okay, well, I've heard similar stories.
You've heard the same. Okay, well
Mhm.
then you know, I'm not telling you something you've never heard before.
Mm-hmm.
So then when we got back, we came over on the Westminster, which was a tired old boat ship. And when they told us we'd be docking, we would be all clean shaven and all, which we were, ready to go. Yeah, a day and a half later we got there. So nobody was in a good mood, pouring rain. When we got came off the ship, and there was the Red Cross with 2 tin cups here and a tin cup down here, rattling the tin cups, handing out coffee, taking any donations. Guys would just look at them and walk away. They wouldn't take the coffee, or some of them would take the coffee and then pour it on the ground and drop the cup and walk on.
All right, I'm going to stop you here because I have to switch tapes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you mentioned coming back on ship, and you've got a photo of what the accommodations were like.
Yep,
Looks like they were pretty tight.
exactly right. When you're rolling in an old tub like the Westminster, you're bouncing all over the ocean. And of course,
Okay.
we went through our storms, as always.
Okay.
And the guys on the top bunk would get sick, and up they would chuck, and they would trickle down over the guys in the lower bunks, and they would get sick. And then pretty soon you couldn't walk on the floor because there was so much vomit and everything. You were sliding around in it and falling down. And
Okay.
one hell of a mess.
All right. Now, whereabouts were you discharged from? Was it Fort Dix?
Yeah, down here outside, New York City. Yeah, just that's Dix. I think so.
Yeah, Fort Dix, New Jersey, or Camp Dix at the time.
Or what?
Was it Camp Dix where they discharged you?
Yeah, and I went in from there into New York City because my older cousin was working with Eastern Airlines. He was the guy who was the navigator here.
Oh,
And so then we were discharged from there.
mm-hmm.
Then he took some time off and drove me back up to Saratoga. His wife was there too.
No.
So they're all gone now.
Yeah.
I'm the last of the senior group, and this is one reason I wanted to get some of this done and recorded, because I don't know how much they did, and I don't think it was very much.
Okay. Now, did you make use of the GI Bill at all?
Yeah, I made it. I went back to Cornell, and talking with the guy, he said to me, "Oh, you were here?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Okay, you finished your freshman year." And I said, "Well, yeah, except that my call to active duty coincided with my finals, so I said I wasn't to take the finals." And he said, "You didn't take the finals?" And he said, "Well, then you'll have to take the year over." And I said, "Well, I was passing and everything else. I couldn't say no to the government. They weren't going to listen to me there."
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Well, I'm sorry, that's the way it is. You'll have to take your freshman year over." I'm afraid I used some language I won't put on tape. He told me what he could do with it, and I got up and walked out. Never looked back. Now I've got some good friends there. I belong to a Sigma Pi fraternity. It's a great fraternity. I belonged that first year when
Mm-hmm.
for the war. And I support that, but I still have a little bitter taste in my mouth. So when I got back from there, then I found out going down to Albany Business College, and got concentrated on business law and accounting, finance, and so on.
Mm-hmm. Is that the type of work you did when?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been an officer and a member of the board of directors of several corporations,
Mhm.
and now retired.
Okay.
My house is still up for sale down in Elmira, New York. If you would like to buy it, I'll make the financial arrangements.
Okay. Did you join any veterans organizations?
Well, I have, but I have never been, I'm a member of the VFW.
Mhm.
Time and circumstance, and I'm a member, but I was never a good member. I never active, and
Okay.
I had a number of other things I was involved with, and that's just the way it was.
Did you stay in touch with any of the people you were in service with?
Oh yeah, yeah. I did until I ran out of people.
Mhm.
You see, when I was the second youngest guy in my squadron. Johnny Beeks, my birthday was in July, and his birthday was in September, same year. So we were the two youngest in our squadron. So he was younger than I. But Johnny's in bad shape now.
Mhm.
Bad shape.
Have you attended any reunions at all?
No, I was never great on reunions. They had a couple of them, and see, one of the things that my work with the squadron, I only got to know real well maybe 5 or 6
Mhm.
guys because I was gone. I was on the road traveling. I was out picking up an aircraft. I was out on some special run.
Mhm.
For what I was doing for a living with the outfit. So it wasn't like I was on the base working with all the guys on the base day in and day out.
Uh-huh.
I'd be on the base for maybe half a day or a day or something, and then I was off. I was all over Europe. I was driving. I could take you almost any place in northern France and Belgium, up into Holland, without even a map
Mhm.
near the end because I'd been all over the place. Same with England. But I would be driving all over. Some of them were driving officers in a Jeep. Some of them would be with a crash truck picking up another aircraft.
Mhm.
You've seen the picture of Eisenhower shaking hands with the paratroopers?
Yes.
Okay, I was right there 24 hours before that.
Oh.
That's where I was. I was there working on detached service, readying the gliders, the GC-4As.
Mhm.
That were part of the assault. And I was assembling those using the crash truck and the crane and moving all the heavy equipment around. And I suddenly got, almost in the middle of one of those things, and they came out and said, Sahlberg, yeah, get your gear and go home, get back to your squadron. So I got this thing. Well, we had a conversation, but so I just stopped what I was doing, went home, went back, picked up my stuff, got it, drove back up, and woke up the next morning and, hey, did you know the invasion's on? So that's how close I came to D-Day.
Yeah. How do you think that your time in the service changed or affected your life?
Well, it certainly, I went from, yeah, I know it all. What do you think you know? Attitude as a 17, 18-year-old male.
Mm-hmm.
And you were never that young, I'm sure, yourself. But I learned an awful lot.
Mm-hmm.
I learned when you don't talk back and when you keep your mouth shut, when you like to do something more about it. And not to throw drinks into people's faces in the closed bar, which is didn't turn out too well as I gave you the story.
Okay.
But it cost me dearly because promotions that I would have received, I never got, only because of that.
That incident. All right, let's take a look at some of the memorabilia you brought. I'm going to stop this for just a second. Okay.
on April 16th, June, correction, April 16th of 1944. I went to the mine and booby trap school, the Prince of
Right.
Naval. And it was a beautiful estate, but outside the windows was this big field, and it had been kind of messed up and plowed and grass out there. And they set up tables similar to what I'm looking at here, and they had all of these mines and booby traps. There were Italian, German, French. Didn't have any Japanese, but that's the only thing they didn't have. Our job was to learn how to neutralize these, because we were going to be the ones who would be asked to go in first to be sure that it had been cleaned up.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a good job. So we had a chance to do all of our questions and one thing and another, and they finally got to the end of it, after the end of the second day. And they said, well, any more questions? Nobody said anything. He said, good. Well, then I guess that takes care of the classes. When everybody starts getting their stuff, he said, oh, of course you have to do graduation. We have graduation. Yes, you see that big field out there? Yeah. He said there are live mines and booby traps in it. You'll each be assigned a role to go down. Your job is to find it and neutralize it. Dead silence. Somebody said, are they live? He said, the main charge has been removed. The detonator is in there. It won't kill you, but you'll lose a hand. Now? Right now. And they said, the first five of them. First five. You each pick a roll and start the mine detector probing.
Mm-hmm.
And was I glad that I had my little pad that you just saw? I had made my notes. And when it came to be my turn, I went and did my probing and all that, and I found the mine, and I got it cleaned off enough to see that it had one booby trap attached off to the side, and the rest of it was all knotted nice. So, because of that, because of my little book, I knew exactly where to go and to neutralize it.
Mm-hmm.
And one guy in the trucking outfit, as I say, lost most of the fingers on his left hand because when he did it, it was booby trapped, and he thought he cleaned it up. It didn't.
Yeah.
When the charge went off, and blew that much of his hand off. And one of the Brits said, well, it's not all bad. He gets to go home now. Yeah, well, I guess I'll stick around a while. I don't think I'm ready to go home at that pace.
Yeah. Without your fingers, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that was the story on the mines.
Okay.
All right, is there anything else done?
The books you've got, do you want to briefly explain?
Sure. Well, we're talking.
Now, the first book there, it's got the German flag on the cover, and I see we've got you brought the flag in with you, and we have that spread out on the table.
That's right.
With some helmets. Do you want to explain the flag to us, where that came from?
Yes. At your leisure, I'll go through the explanation of at your leisure. Just a little pamphlet that I have right here.
Okay.
With that on there.
Well, hold on just a second. Let me see. Go ahead and continue.
This pamphlet here that I made up.
Yeah.
Has got the flag, and there's some kids that wanted to see it, and that's how I got that done. Inside of it, I have put in here, I want that flag. Now, I start out on September 15th of 44 about our leaving England.
Mm-hmm.
And the story, that first part of it is the story of our trip over the channel and all of that good stuff. When we got situated to, okay, we were headed for Sharks, and in doing so, the weather changed dramatically, and we had one heck of a storm. Rain, thunder, lightning, wind, and as we got into Sharks, France, the orders came down, seek shelter, form up in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did. I got out, and there was a beautiful chateau. Big, broad verandas around it, big picture windows, double doors with stained glass. How it ever escaped the war, I don't know, because there was an awful lot. Anyway, I went in, it was full of GIs, and all getting out of the rain. And it was crowded, except as I walked down the hall, this one great big room, and it was probably twice the size of this room right here,
Mm-hmm.
was totally empty. And there were all tapes down the doors, big sign, mines booby-trapped, stay out. Well, nobody was bothering to go in. And I thought, geez, it's pretty good. I stood there and I looked in. Here's this, like a fireplace, only it was, as I came in the door here, it was right against that wall there.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a great big beautiful flag over the fireplace. So, I thought, gee, I just got through going to school to learn how to neutralize mines and booby traps. I'll give it a try. Now you're talking to a 19, 20-year-old, hey, you know,
Uh-huh.
today I'm going the other way. But anyway, that's what I did. I went in and admitted, as soon as I climbed through all that network of takings, everybody was yelling at you, calling me all kinds of SOBs. Want you not get out of there, get away from there. What's the matter? You're crazy? You listen to mine. And I said, yeah. I said, I'm a specialist. I'm here to clean it up. Whoosh. Everybody disappeared. There weren't anybody standing around that room even.
Uh-huh.
I had that room to myself, and this is the story of the step-by-step process that I did when I got into that room by myself. It was one step at a time,
Mm-hmm.
from the time my feet to the next board, to the windows, to the fireplace. The fireplace was the tricky part. But I did it all, and I couldn't find it. So I spent the night in a big, beautiful room, all by myself. These other guys are all crammed in together out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get on a step-by-step basis how I took that flag down off of over the fireplace.
Okay. All right.
But it wasn't until after the war that I knew where I had got this from.
Uh-huh.
If you go back and you call up, get on the internet, and you find out that the Lear Panzer Division had been on the Russian front, and they had not been treated kindly. Hitler was bringing them back. Lear in German means instructor, teacher. These were the creme de creme of Hitler's tanks. They were the instructors now. And there was one small detachment of them down near the Omaha Beach on D-Day. But he wanted them back because he was now expecting, obviously, the Americans and French, or the English were coming. So in there, it talks about the Lear Panzer Division in Chartres.
Mm-hmm. So that's where you were.
So that confirmed what I didn't know it. When I took this, I knew it was something big, because
Mm-hmm.
it isn't the type of thing that you find out in the backwoods.
Right.
But anyway, so that's my basis for saying that this came out of the headquarters of the Chartres.
Okay. Do you want to show us the other books you've got?
Yeah,
Yep. No, that one there in your hand.
this one?
Yep.
Okay, this one here is my cousin. He's 6 months older than I was. He stayed at Cornell and went to the, he only had 2 years to go. So he graduated and went into the Navy. And he was studying to be a pilot. The Whistling Death is the Corsair.
Uh-huh.
And that is the plane he learned to fly.
And what was his name?
Robert Adelbert Knapp, K-N-A-P-P.
Okay.
He is the younger brother of Lonis Hayden Knapp, which we will look at in just a minute.
Okay.
And he was home on leave before shipping out, as the war wound down. And that, while he was home on leave, is when they dropped the bombs in Hiroshima and the Japanese surrendered. His job when he came back from leave, or would have been, that he would have shipped out, he would have been part of the invasion of Japan. And he died this year, a couple months ago.
Okay.
I don't think I got a picture of mine. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Yep.
Lois Hayden Knapp.
Okay, and he was the older brother?
He was the older brother of Bob.
Okay.
He was already graduated out of Cornell.
Okay.
So he was a squadron navigator before he got through. He got the Purple Heart, and he got some awards because of he got wounded, which is here's a story of how he was wounded all
right.
here.
And when did he pass away?
Lon passed away about 5 years ago.
Okay. And he was a native Saratogian?
Yeah. He went through a grade school and high school, just like the rest of us. He was just the older.
Okay.
And this is, on here is, is a picture of him.
Okay, and that's his wife?
That is his wife. They got married, yeah. This is the picture taken at the time that he was getting married, actually.
Okay. All right, got it.
They're both dead now. Bob's gone. He just died this year. And this was just, he made the headlines here in Saratoga. You see this headline across the top?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, got it.
And, well, it's just what it's his story of his life in the war. And who the people were, the friends that were killed, missions he was on. These are actual listings taken from the war military records. This one's of air medals, the DFC. Here's Knapp listed under the Purple Heart. And here's Knapp listed again under the DFC. And he's over here under the air medal. He also got an oak leaf cluster and a second cluster. And these are all actual records, the real actual records. Obviously copies of them now. But these are not made up after the war. This is what would have happened. These are real McCoy. That's why they're so valuable as far as I'm concerned.
All right. And that booklet there.
This are the Remembrances. What I did, of course, was not copacetic as far as the military was concerned. I did keep a record of what I did, when I did it, by date. And this book is made up of my life in service, from the time I entered it, till the time I went overseas, till the time I came home. And that is the, right to the end, there's a picture of Omaha Beach.
Okay.
This was taken either the second day or the third day after D-Day. And the large markings in there are knocked out American tanks and heavy equipment. The little tiny marks that you see all over the place are dead GIs killed trying to cross that beach.
Okay. Got it.
So it's very special to me, and I'm sure there are some others that feel the same way. Other than that,
Oh, let's see that shot there of you.
this
You want to
one-
hold that up?
Yeah, this was taken
Okay.
we had just crossed Omaha Beach, or my outfit,
Okay, got it.
and we were being held up for some reason, I don't know what. But there's a little village there, and it was San Quentin, France, Saint, S-A-I-N-T-Q-U-E-N-T-I-N, Saint Quentin, France. And there's a young girl standing there, and she spoke a little English. And this is the receipt of it here.
Okay. And that's for the photograph.
This
The receipt?
This is the receipt that, see, here's the back of the receipt. Maybe, I don't know which one the back of the receipt, it shows you how much I paid.
Oh, okay. All right, got it.
And then this was the front of the receipt.
Right. Got it. Okay.
So while my outfit was stalled there, and we were just standing around, and this young girl came over and said something to the words to the effect of, would you like your picture taken? And she said it in fairly good English. And, yeah, sure. So she has a little studio, that's what you're seeing, the receipt.
Oh, I see.
And
She developed the film and,
she took the picture, and I'm all done, we're standing there talking, and I paid her, that's the receipt, and she said it will be ready in a couple of days. And I said, I may not be here. She said, I will keep it. I will keep it for you to come back. Well, it was probably 4 or 5 weeks before I was in that neighborhood again.
uh-huh.
And I went back, and sure enough, she remembered me when I walked in. She said, I have your picture.
Wow.
And that's the picture that you just took of me. So that's what I looked like when I went into France.
Uh-huh. Well, I don't think you've changed that much. Might be a little bit older.
Yeah, a little bit here, a little bit there. Now, I'm leaving these things with you.
Okay.
These
Well,
are yours,
we appreciate it.
and put it in your files, and whatever you
Okay.
do with these things.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your interview.
I thank you for giving me an opportunity to at least put a few things down for history.
It's our pleasure, believe me.